So let's cultivate our motivation. We have another day where we have the privilege and opportunity to share the Dharma together. And it's not something to be taken for granted, because whoever we were in several previous lives worked very hard to create the causes so that we now have this opportunity. And listening to the Dharma brings so much benefit. We may not realize it at the time, but the force of planting seeds of the Buddha's teachings on our mind is very important and impacts this life and future lives, impacts how we participate in society and our relationships. So it's very rare to hear the kind of perspective on life that the Buddha offers. So let's really treasure that and listen and discuss and share it very well so that all of us can grow and develop our compassion, develop our wisdom, and progress along the path to full awakening. So if full awakening, Buddhahood, is our ultimate aim. Yeah, and of course we have several other aims that come before that. Having a good rebirth, meeting the Dharma, again, having good conditions to practice, and so on. Then we have to look at what are the causes to attain those results, and what are the things that block us from attaining those results. Okay, so in parting from the four attachments or the four graspings, Nupa Rigson Jock talks about what impedes us and also what are the antidotes to that. So we're talking about the first impediment right now, attachment to this life. Yeah, and that's the big one for most of us, okay? Because this is the one we really need to work on in order to overcome the subtler impediments and the subtler defilements. So it's very easy to misunderstand this one about attachment to this life and to the pleasures of this life, and think that the purpose is that we suffer. And the more we suffer, the more we purify and the holier we are. So that Buddhism thinks we should suffer in order to approach Buddhahood. Okay, that is not the Buddha's position. Okay, the Buddha has no reason to teach us how to suffer. We can do that all by ourselves. Okay, so when the Buddha talks about reducing the attachment or grasping to this life, the purpose is so that we will be happier. Okay, so when we speak about renunciation, whether it's of attachment to this life or attachment to all of samsara or attachment to our own awakening, yeah, all of this is done for the purpose of bringing more happiness to ourselves and others. Okay, so it's very important to understand this, because otherwise we hear about reducing and eliminating these four, the grasping to this life, and we go, oh, I'm going to suffer so much if I do this. Yeah, why does spiritual practice have to involve so much suffering? Okay, so one thing to be aware of, it is not spiritual practice that makes us suffer. And it's not the Buddha's teachings that make us unhappy. It's the afflictions in our mind stream that are the cause and root of our unhappiness. Okay? So that's the thing to recognize. And sometimes it's difficult to realize that. And even we realize that, it's difficult to accept it. Okay? Because really accepting it in our heart will bring about a great change in how we are in the world, how we relate to people, what career paths we choose. Many things, it will affect that. Yeah? And so sometimes our mind goes, oh dear, if I give up all the attachment to this life, the only alternative is to go to that cave far away in the mountains and eat nettles and meditate. And that's really not what I feel like doing, So nobody is saying that that's what giving up the attachment to this life necessitates. Yeah, because you can go up to the mountains and live in seclusion and have a feast of attachment to the happiness of this life. Okay? So what we have to always look at is the mind. Come back, and what is my mind holding on to? Okay? And not to superimpose misconceptions on what the Buddha is teaching, because we often do that. Okay? Also, when we talk about abandoning attachment to this life, it doesn't mean I don't care. Yeah. Some people think, oh, if I don't have attachment, then I just don't care. I don't care about anything, because if I care about it, that means I'm attached. So a good Buddhist practitioner abides in detachment and just doesn't care. Yeah, so there's ice cream, there's no ice cream, I don't care. There's people around me getting harmed, I don't care. I have equanimity. What kind of spiritual practice is that? Yeah, that's not what the Buddha's trying to get us to. Yeah, he's not trying to make us apathetic like a bump on a log that just sits there and says, oh, I don't care. That's not the purpose of the Dharma. Yeah, we can space out all by ourselves. We don't need the Buddha to teach us how to space out and become apathetic. Yeah, the Buddha is trying to teach us how to care, but care in a suitable way. Okay, so yesterday I started talking about the 8 worldly concerns. Yeah, and I didn't get through all of them, and I didn't state one from the other, I got them mixed up and everything. And I gave some pretty ridiculous examples, like about the spatula. So please know that I may give seemingly ridiculous examples, but, yeah, they represent things that we actually do. And sometimes these seemingly stupid, foolish things are what we actually get hung up on and what we actually quarrel with people about. Okay? So in laughing at them and exaggerating how ridiculous they are, my purpose is to get us to be able to laugh at ourselves and not take ourselves so seriously, and realize that these things are really not things we need to get so hung up on. And so let's pay attention to things that are more important and be able to laugh at the foolish things that we get stuck in. Okay. But of course, when we're stuck in something foolish, we don't usually think it's foolish. Yeah. If you're somebody who's very attached to that spatula and where it's put, you're going to be very upset when somebody like me comes along and breaks it accidentally. Yeah. And you'll have a whole litany of reasons why I'm wrong and you're right, and on and on and on. And this can become a big thing. Okay? So the seemingly silly examples are not always so silly. Yeah? Because they illustrate to us how we cling, how we concretize situations. Yeah? And as soon as we concretize things, we are setting ourselves up for confusion and pain. Okay? And everybody's going to concretize different things, although our society has a few that are pretty pervasive. Okay, so let's go back to the 8 worldly concerns. Yeah, feeling delighted when we have the first pair, delighted when we have money and wealth, and dejected when we lose it or don't have it, So this would include things such as it's our birthday or an anniversary, and people don't buy us presents. And one of our rules of the universe is people should remember these things and give me a present. Yeah, then we get upset. No present. Yeah. We want a raise because we want more money, but somebody else gets the raise. We get upset. Or we get the raise, but it's not as much as we think we deserve. Okay, so what's happening is, to the degree that we are attached to money and material possessions, to the same degree we get upset when we don't have them or lose them or they get broken or destroyed. Okay, so a good check when we think that we're not attached is to see what happens when we don't get it, and see if our mind remains even at that time, or if we, go about trying to change the external situation, tell somebody else what they're doing is inappropriate and they should do it my way, and so on. Okay? The second one is attachment to having a good reputation and aversion to having a bad one. So here, reputation means our social image to a large group of people. Okay? The next pair, attachment to praise and approval and aversion to blame and disapproval, that is according to what one person thinks of us and the way they talk to us. The one about reputation is our image, even to strangers, okay? Yes, she said to tell you it wasn't her thing, that about the spatula, yeah. Yes, it was my thing. So, so we think, reputation, I don't care so much about that. But again, look, I mean, for example, in our family group, yeah, we all know that family members spend most of their time talking about what other family members are doing. Yeah, is that true in your family? Yeah, it's true in my family. We either talk about what the other people are doing or about our cats and dogs and pets. Yeah, and sometimes about politics, but we all agree in my family. So, okay, but yeah, we want to have a good reputation in the family. Yeah, we want to be known as being good at what we're doing, be successful according to family standards. In our workplace, we want to have a good reputation. Yeah, even people don't know us well, they've heard about us from other people, how smart we are, how good we are at our job, how kind we are, how helpful we are, to everybody. Even our hobbies, yeah, whatever hobby you do in a group, we want to have the reputation of doing that hobby well. Yeah, if you play baseball as a hobby, if you want to, even playing catch with your kids, you want to be known in the neighborhood as the parent who really likes to play catch with the kids. There's so many things where our image is involved. Yeah. And so much of our life that is consumed by making sure we have a good image and by promoting ourselves. And I think that's gotten really emphasized recently with the internet and how everybody creates these ideal versions of themselves online. And especially when you're doing a CV for a job interview, you create this image of this fantastic person, yeah, who can do anything, yeah. And they say, can you do this? And you don't know how to do it, but you say, but I'm a quick learner. So I know whenever I ask somebody a question, if they say, I'm a quick learner, it means I don't know how to do that. Okay, but we don't want to say I don't know how to do it. We say I'm a quick learner. Yeah, I had the gall when my niece was applying for college some years ago and had to write an essay about herself. Yeah, I had the gall to suggest that she also writes about her weaknesses. Whoa! Did I get pushback from that? But for me, if somebody is interviewing or something like that, I'm going to look for how honest is this person? How much are they in touch with themselves? How transparent and cooperative are they? And for me, if I see a person write about themselves and everything about them is magnificent, I am very skeptical. Okay. But apparently, people who apply for jobs and graduate school and so on think that nobody is going to think like me. And so, these magnificent things of, I am fantastic to create that image. Yeah. And then, if somebody else has a better image, yeah. I mean, when you're young and you look up to the sports stars and you look up to the movie stars. I remember there was one young man who came here and he said, I wanted to be a basketball player and I looked up to Magic Johnson and Kobe and all these people and I was going to be a basketball player like them because he was really enthused about, the reputation and the fame is very enticing. And he said, when I was a kid, that's what I really wanted to do. And then in 7th grade, I stopped growing. Yeah. So, to look at how we juggle things, how we hide things when we want to create a good reputation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we all have our own version of a good reputation, and then we just kind of, do what we think will create one. And the reason we're so attached to reputation is because we think that if other people think that we're good, then we must be good. So I think attachment to reputation in us ordinary beings is usually fueled by insecurity. Yeah, that we lack our own self-confidence and we want other people to tell us who we are. And if other people tell us we're wonderful, then we believe in ourselves. Okay? But what we're missing here, and what the trap is here, is if we believe that whatever somebody else tells us about ourselves, whatever everybody else thinks about us is true, then what happens when people have a bad image of us and start listing faults, be they real or contrived? And what happens when people talk about us behind our back? Okay, then we get totally dejected. Yeah, we're totally miserable. My reputation has been ruined. What do people think of me? Who am I? And it becomes a real existential question for some people almost, because they rely so much on other people telling them that they're wonderful and other people telling them who they are. Mm-hmm. Do you see that tendency in yourself? Yeah, so the solution is to learn to assess ourselves. Yeah, and to assess ourselves in a realistic way without harsh self-judgment. In other words, knowing what our good qualities are, knowing what our faults are, acknowledging both of them, and knowing that we can improve in the future. Yeah? And because if we can evaluate our own actions and behavior and thoughts, then we don't need to rely on others to tell us if we're good or bad. And we don't need to rely on others to have a sense of self-confidence. Okay? So it's always a signal to me when I meet people who are always telling me how great they are and how many famous people they know and what they've accomplished, and they give me their card and it rolls out, very long, president of this, vice president of that, and then when people are always telling me, how great they are, in my mind, I say, oh, that person, doesn't really believe in themselves. Yeah. They feel a need to impress me because they're afraid that if they're just naturally who they are, that I won't like them. But that's not true. That's not true. Yeah. Because I want to see who the person is, not who their Facebook image is. I mean, anybody can make up a Facebook image. Okay, so to really try and come home to ourselves and evaluate. So there's nothing wrong with identifying our good qualities. And we should know what those good qualities are so that we can use them to contribute to the welfare of other beings. Okay, so we need to know what our good qualities are. But when we know what they are, we don't need to be proud and arrogant about them, because there's always going to be people who are better than us. Yeah? And so I think it's good. We rejoice that there's people who are better than us, because then we have people we can learn from. Also, because if we think if we are the best, that is a very stressful position to uphold. Yeah? We want to impress people, have a reputation of being really good, but then, you're sitting on this high peak, and how do you get stability? Because you're always trying to please everybody to keep up your reputation. Yeah. So it's actually quite stressful. And then as soon as somebody doesn't like what you're doing, then you're like, oh, I'm worthless. Okay. The other difficulty in evaluating ourselves is a tendency for too much criticism, too much self-criticism, unrealistic expectations. Okay? So this contributes also to the dejection, feeling of dejection and aversion when we have a bad reputation, because we go to the extreme of, well, then I'm worthless. I can't do anything. Everybody thinks I'm rotten. Okay. And why do they think I'm rotten? Because I am rotten. Okay. So again, this is all made up, to use Joe Biden's term, malarkey. Okay? It's just garbage that our mind has created. So whenever we are judging ourselves harshly like that, that also is a superimposition. It's a wrong idea, a wrong conception. It's not in harmony with the Dharma. Okay? So it's very important to learn to be comfortable with ourselves. I have good qualities and I have faults. And I accept all of that. And I know in the future that I can grow. And then you get on with your life instead of having so much anxiety about what do people think about me. Yeah. Like, what are my ratings? Yeah. To ask what somebody we know is concerned about. What are my ratings? What are they saying about me? Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of me? My cat. Does my cat love me? She's going to come up. Here she is. Come on, introduce yourself to everybody. Here's Maitri. Her name means love. Okay, Maitri, sweetie. Come on. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, say hello to everybody. Okay, she's giving you the waving with her tail. Okay, so we want to learn to evaluate ourselves in a realistic way, And then that relieves so much pressure, internal pressure. Okay? Then the third pair is attachment to praise and approval and aversion to blame and disapproval. Okay, so again, your mind is making up stories, dear. Nobody is harming you. Yeah. So we want to hear praise. You're such a wonderful kitty. You're the best one around. I love you forever and ever. Yeah. We want to hear nice, sweet, ego-pleasing words. Yeah. And we want people to approve of what we're doing. So this can sometimes become a big impediment to doing our Dharma practice, because we want to go to teachings or go to a retreat, and the people around us may not approve. You go into work after your holiday, and people say, what did you do? Where did you go? The Grand Canyon, the Andes, what did you experience? And you say, I went on a meditation retreat and it was wonderful. And your colleagues said, you sat and looked at your belly button for a week? Yeah, why don't you go out and get a life? What in the world are you doing? And then we feel defeated, They don't approve, or our family doesn't approve of what we're doing. No. And here's where people-pleasing comes in. Yeah. We, one time, we have a habit at the Abbey, after courses, we often do skits. And so one time there were some people who did a skit about being people-pleasers. Yeah, you know people-pleasers? So they're the ones who are always wanting to take care of everybody else and making sure everybody else is okay, and going out of their way to fuss to make sure that everything's okay, so that everybody likes them and everybody thinks that they're kind. Okay? And you can really see that with people pleasers. They need this constant flow of the stamp of approval from other people. Okay? So again, it comes back to developing a valid sense of self-confidence instead of relying so much on people. Yeah? Okay, so we want praise, we want approval. Somebody blames us. Yeah? Somebody disapproves, we freak out. Yeah. So if we get blamed because we actually made that mistake, we're mad about that, or we're totally dejected and we hate ourselves. So one extreme or the other. If people blame us for something we didn't do, whoa, then we are over the top with rage. Okay? This is attachment to praise and aversion to blame. Actually, I think blame, is a word that we should eliminate. Yeah, because when we talk about blame, we want to attribute the cause of a very complicated situation to one person. Yeah. You are to blame because you did this. Yeah. But no situation is due to just the actions of one person. Yeah. Many people are involved. Many people create the ambience, the milieu in which that kind of thing can happen. Yeah. So, blame is the easy way out of saying, I have no responsibility. But again, the whole thing of responsibility is very confusing for us, because we either take responsibility for things that aren't our responsibility, or we don't take responsibility for things that are our responsibility. Okay? So very interesting to look at our own minds, and how we go about doing this. Yeah. I mean, parents often take responsibility for things of their kids that are not their responsibility. Yeah. You bring your kid up as best as you can, but you can't control what the child does.
No. I take responsibility for everything good she does, but it's her responsibility when she does something bad.
Oh, I just got corrected by a parent here. Mom takes responsibility for everything good her daughter does, but every mistake her daughter makes is her own responsibility. Yes, okay. Now that we got that straight. Okay.
Well, then what did I do wrong?
Yeah, I mean, that's parents' thing. What did I do wrong? You know? But your job as a parent is to bring the child up as best as you can, but you cannot control everything that child does. Yeah. So you do the best you can, and then you have to let go, rather than thinking everything that the child does is your responsibility. Okay. Then the fourth pair of the eight worldly concerns is attachment to pleasant sensual sensations and aversion to unpleasant ones. Okay, so we all want to see beautiful things. So we all want to decorate our own habitat in our own way with the colors we like and the way we like it to be. So some people want their walls plastered with things and other people want nothing, but we always want to see what we think is beautiful. Okay? We want to hear things that are beautiful. Yeah, like nice sounds, not scratches on the chalkboard. Of course, I don't know if the younger generation even knows what that sounds like anymore. At least not in developed countries. In undeveloped countries, there's still chalkboards. Okay, we want to hear the music that we like. We don't want to hear the music of our parents' generation or our children's generation. Okay? Yeah. When you go to the dentist office, you want to hear a certain kind of music or no music at all. Yeah, but you can't control it. Okay. We want to smell nice smells. Okay. We don't want to smell Lysol and bleach. Okay. But we also don't want to smell pee-pee and caca. Yeah. Yeah. We want nice smells. You go to India and you cannot control what you smell in India. Yeah. And you never know what you're going to smell, when you're going to smell it, and there it is. Okay. So a lot of people run back to their own country because of that. Taste. Yeah. We want to taste the kind of food that we like. Yeah. And the people who make processed food know that. So all the chips, yeah, when you're eating chips, you are the product of commercial manipulation. Seriously. Because they test all the chips to get exactly the right combination of oil, salt, and sugar so that people like it and want to eat more and more and more. So when you start eating those chips and you like them and you're going back for another handful, you are the product of their manipulation. It's true, isn't it? Yeah? But we like it so much. I can't stand chips. But really, they're so salty and they're so oily. Yeah. So I know you people are going to say, you don't know what you're missing. I don't know, and I'm glad I don't know. Okay. But we want to eat certain kinds of food. Yeah. When you travel, often you cannot control what food you get. Yeah. And you can't control how the cook did it. And so you see people when the food, the taste is not what they want, they get really upset in restaurants. Yeah, have you seen people make a fuss in restaurants? Have you been with people who made the fuss? Have you yourself made a fuss? Oh no, I wouldn't do that. But you should see my relative in the restaurant who said, "Take this steak back. Yeah, it's overcooked. How dare you serve this to me?" And everybody in the restaurant turns around and stares. Yeah, but now that they're opening the restaurants again, there's fewer people in them because you have to sit further apart, so not so many people are going to stare at you, and your relative does that. Okay? But we, so sensitive to these kinds of things. Yeah, the bed. Yeah. If you want a flat bed, it better be flat. If you want a tilted bed, it better be tilted. If you want it soft, it better be exactly as soft as you want it. If you want it hard, it better be exactly as hard as you want it. Okay. Then you go to take full ordination in Taiwan, and they give you a place to sleep, and you have no choice. Yeah. And it's not as soft as you want it, and it's not as hard as you want it. And you sleep there, and you're happy. Okay? We all want the same temperature. Yeah. And, you can see, whenever we do retreat, we have to have a rule that nobody stands up in the middle of a session. Why? Because otherwise, one person will open the window because they're too hot, and 2 minutes later, somebody else will close the window because it's too cold. Okay, so we all want the right temperature. Mm-hmm. So all these kinds of things, what I'm getting at is, we have this amazing human potential, to develop equal-hearted love and compassion for all beings with no discrimination or bias. We have the potential to realize the ultimate nature of reality. The potential of our mind is extraordinary. You think even about developing single-pointed concentration where you can focus on one object. How amazing that must be. But what do we spend our time thinking about? The color of the carpet. Yeah. Whether other people like us. Whether we got cheated. Did I pay $2 extra at the store? Our amazing human potential we use, looking at what the stock market's doing. Oh, the stock market went up. Stock market went down. So in one day, especially nowadays, you're going, because it changes so much. Yeah? So who knows, when you really think about our human potential in the long term, then we have to think, how are we using our time? What are we focusing on? Okay? So this is going to lead into talking about the disadvantages of the 8 worldly concerns. So I want to make very clear at the beginning, nobody is saying you shouldn't be attached and you shouldn't be upset. So don't get into this thing of somebody else is telling you what you should and shouldn't do, or should or shouldn't feel. Okay? Because most people, especially Americans, Europeans are much more, I think, grounded, but Americans do not tell us what to do because we will do the opposite. Okay? So nobody is telling you what you should or shouldn't feel, let alone the Buddha, and I'm certainly not going to do that. Yeah, but you should always like me. Yeah, that's the first rule of the universe. Okay, but aside from that, so don't think that you are getting judged by the Buddha or some outside power, and that you all of a sudden have to squish yourself so that you're not attached. Yeah. Or squish yourself, suppress things so that you don't get upset. Yeah. We're not talking about shoulds. We're not talking about somebody else's standards of how you should be. What we're talking about is look inside yourself. Think about what kind of person you want to be. Think about what kind of life you want to have and what your far-reaching goals are. And then see if attachment to 4 of these 8 and aversion and upset to the other 4, see if those help you attain your goals and your and happiness, or if they get in the way. That's what we're being asked to do here. Okay? Look at your own life. Don't take anybody else's word for it, but do a simple life review and see, start with the first one. When I'm attached to getting money and presents, how has that manifested in my life? And what have I done in order to do that? And what have I sacrificed in order to get that? And what do I think about that? Is that really in accord with my values? Or does that kind of attachment make me get involved in activities that create negative karma, and activities that I know in my heart aren't good, and that even if I keep them hidden, it make the activities that make me lose my own self-respect. Okay, so this requires a lot of internal examination. Nobody's telling us, how we should be. So please remember that. Okay, so what I want to do now is Nupa Rigson Jok's teacher, Dukpa Gyaltsen, wrote a longer version of Parting from the 4 Attachments. And in it, he talked about the defects of the 8 worldly concerns and the defects of attachment to this life. So I thought to amplify what our author, what he said with what his teacher said. Okay, so Dukpa Gyaltsen says, if you cling to this life, you are not a practitioner. What? You're telling me I'm not a practitioner? But look at my altar. I have the most expensive Buddha statue and beautiful Buddha statue of anybody in our Dharma group. I have this gorgeous, do you know how much it costs? Do you know where I got it? Yeah, and I have a stupa, and I have a text. The text is written in gold. Yeah, this text was so difficult to get. Prajna Paramita written in gold. Yeah, I can't read it, but it's gorgeous and it's really expensive. Yeah, and look what's on my altar. Yeah, the picture of my teacher and me that my teacher signed. Yeah. To me. Yeah. With love and appreciation for being such a fantastic Dharma student and your teacher's name. Yeah. Do you have a picture with you and your teacher together that's signed by your teacher? Oh, really? You don't? Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. I'll see if I can talk to some of the lamas I know, the really high lamas I know, and see if I can remedy that for you. Because I know a lot of high lamas. Okay, because I'm a good practitioner. Okay, so Dukpa Gyaltsen, what is he talking about when he says, if you cling to this life, you are not a practitioner? Well, clinging to this life, everybody does. You don't need to be a practitioner to cling to this life. Yeah? In fact, there's nothing spectacular about clinging to this life. It's the mark of an ordinary person. The first Dharma course I went to, my teacher said, animals, they, you take a dog and you feed the dog and the dog loves you and wags its tail. You're a stranger and the dog barks at you. So loving your friends, hating your enemies, this is what the dogs do. Yeah? Exactly what the dogs do. And he said, if you're a human being and that's what you do in your life is help your friends and harm your enemies, you may do it in a more sophisticated way, but it's essentially the same thing. I remember sitting there listening to that and going, whoa, he's right. He's right. Yeah, so, grasping on to the happiness of this life is not an exceptional quality of human intelligence. It's the quality of ordinary sentient beings, including all of our animal friends, including all the insects. Okay, so then Dukpa Gyaltsen goes on. First, not clinging to this life, ethical discipline, study, reflection, and meditation. He who pursues these for this life's sake is not a practitioner. So cast this aside. So we go, wait a minute. My teachers were saying that I'm supposed to keep ethical discipline, study the scriptures, reflect on their meaning, and meditate. And I'm doing all of that. Why is he telling me, one who pursues these for this life's sake is not a practitioner? Yeah. Because we may be doing those, but what's our motivation? So being a practitioner is not how we look. Yeah, we know how to look like a practitioner. We have a whole lifetime of training of pretending to be what we aren't. We have a whole lifetime of training of pulling the wool over people's eyes. Okay? What Dukpa Gyaltsen is saying, is that is not a proper motivation for doing activities that look like Dharma activities, but aren't because we have a rotten motivation. So he goes on to explain, okay? He says, first to explain ethical discipline. And he tells us the benefits of ethical discipline. It's the root of higher migration. Ethical discipline is the primary cause of having a good rebirth, a fortunate rebirth. Okay, it's the staircase to liberation. Anything you practice, whether it's fundamental vehicle, universal vehicle, Vajra vehicle, it's all based on ethical discipline. So it's the staircase, all these different levels of ethical discipline that lead us to awakening. And ethical discipline is the antidote to suffering. Why is it the antidote to suffering? Because if we don't harm others, they're not going to harm us. Yeah? Best way to have an argument with somebody is to start one. Yeah? How do we start an argument? We do something that is going to annoy somebody else and bug somebody else. Yeah? Or that's going to trample on, their concerns and their needs. Okay, but if we keep good ethical conduct, we're not going to do that. And so we're already preventing many arguments. Yeah? It's so interesting, you watch how politicians operate, especially the present administration. It's such a good example of so many of these things. How easy it is to create a conflict by just, not following ethical discipline and overstepping the boundaries and harming others. Okay. So those are some of the benefits of ethical discipline. Another benefit that he doesn't mention so much here is when we keep good ethical discipline, we don't have guilt, we don't have remorse, we don't have regret. We have a clear conscience. Yeah? When we don't keep good ethical discipline, even if we fooled other people, inside of ourselves, we don't feel comfortable. And we're the one who has to live with ourselves. And we're the one who is going to die and have to look at how we lived our life. Yeah? If we lived a life where we, deliberately were negligent or deliberately harmed others, there's going to be a lot waiting our mind, this kind of weight, If we live a life of keeping good ethical conduct, yeah, just even starting with the 5 precepts to abandon killing, taking what isn't freely given, unwise and unkind sexual behavior, lying and taking intoxicants. Even those 5 basic ones, if we abandon those, we are preventing so many problems in this life. And then we're not going to have, so much guilt and regret and remorse and so on as our life goes on. Sometimes I wonder if part of the reason people, when they get old, stoop isn't just because of their bones and muscles, but because the weight of their unkind behavior is weighing them down, Because you can see when you meet people who have gone through certain experiences and acted in certain ways, you can see when there's something really heavy weighing on their heart, and it's sad. Okay? So this is one benefit of keeping good ethical conduct. We're free of that. And we like ourselves, and we respect ourselves. So Dukpa Gyaltsen continues, so you cannot succeed without ethical discipline. But as for ethical discipline that clings to this life, okay, it's the root of the 8 worldly concerns. So how is ethical discipline the root of the 8 worldly concerns? Well, we can act like we have good ethical conduct. And we can be very proud of our ethical conduct. Okay? Look what a great Dharma practitioner I am. I keep all my precepts 100% perfectly, you know. Even to how I dress, I am the fitting image of a perfect Dharma practitioner that gives everybody a good visualization. And I keep my precepts wonderfully, and everybody respects me because of that. And they give me offerings. Yeah, because I'm such a good practitioner, you know, then I get lots of offerings. So this bowl is a little bit too small. You know, I need a bigger bowl to hold all the offerings that I get for being such a good practitioner. Okay? So, it's the root of the 8 worldly concerns. It attracts accusations of immoral behavior. So when we keep good ethical discipline, when we do the right thing for the wrong reason, yeah, when we do that, okay, it's going to attract accusations of immoral behavior. Because while some people may go along with our scam personality, other people are going to look at us and go, yeah, who do you think you are? You know, we know what you're really doing. We know what act you're putting on. And then they're going to broadcast all your immoral behavior and maybe even accuse you of doing something you haven't done. So that becomes a big problem. Okay? It attracts accusations of immoral behavior. Yeah? Because we've been walking around thinking we're, you know, goody two-shoes. It makes you jealous of those with ethical discipline. So when we see people who are genuine Dharma practitioners, we get jealous. And we want to lower them a notch and criticize them behind their back so that other people won't think so highly of them and instead they'll think highly of us. This is the first bodhisattva root ethical downfall. Praising self and denigrating others out of attachment to receiving praise and offerings. But this is what keeping phony ethical conduct gets us into. We become jealous of people who really practice. And then we want to bring them down. Okay, it makes your own discipline a mere pretense. Yeah, because we're putting ourselves out there as phony baloney, you know, that we're the greatest ethical one. It's the seed that creates lower transmigrations because, again, our mind is not being virtuous. Our actions may look virtuous, but the mind is not being virtuous. So we're creating the seeds for, you know, bad rebirths. So Dukpa Gyaltsen's conclusion, cast aside the pretense of morality. Okay, keep good morality, but cast aside the pretense of good morality. He then goes on to talk about study and reflection. Yeah, and doing these under the influence of the 8 worldly concerns. So I'll start on this section. People online, if you have questions, you can start writing them in. Do any of you have questions so far about today before I go on? Oh, there is one. Okay, good.
Someone is asking whether based on hearing you say that self-centeredness is linked to the poor me mentality, is low self-esteem actually self-centeredness?
Yes. Low self-esteem is definitely self-centeredness. Why? Because who's the star of low self-esteem? Who are we contemplating? Who are we commiserating with? Who are we judging? Who are we concerned with low self-esteem? Yeah, there's over 7 billion human beings on this planet, and with low self-esteem, I'm special because I'm the worst of all of them. Yeah? So low self-esteem keeps us just going round and round about me, I, my, mine, me, I, my, mine. You know, oh, I'm so bad, I mess everything up. Oh, we got divorced, it's all my fault. Really? I thought 2 people got married. Yeah. You know, oh, this happened, it's all my fault. I am so powerful, I can make everything go wrong. That's how powerful I am. Look how bad I am. I was a member of that team, and the team project was a disaster because I botched it all up. Yeah. Okay, so low self-esteem is just, it's exhausting. When you really think about it, it's exhausting to have low self-esteem because all we do is go round and around criticizing ourselves, belittling ourselves, telling ourselves we can't do things well. And as a result, we don't get off our tush and do something useful and use our good qualities and our talents and our knowledge to benefit others because we're so busy telling ourselves that we're incompetent. Okay? So whenever you catch yourself putting yourself down and belittling yourself, press the stop button and say, that is just the self-centered mind. Yeah, look what it's doing. It's, destroying everything good. So cut it.
Is the basic reason for self-centered and for low self-esteem competition? Because it seems like His Holiness hasn't recognized it so much in Asia or in Tibet, but then he was surprised discovering it in the West.
Yeah. So I think, very good question, that a lot of the problem with low self-esteem is that we compare ourselves to other people. And this starts when we're very little, especially in cultures that emphasize being individualistic. Johnny went to daycare and he got a star for not spilling his milk. Oh, look how good Johnny is, And Rudolph, well, he spilled his milk. So I don't know, Rudolph probably isn't going to get into a good college. We start this kind of junk at age 3. Or what we do, because we want to encourage everybody, is everybody wins and everybody's good, What about just stopping the comparison altogether? Yeah. And what about teaching kids how to cooperate and teaching kids to feel good about helping other people? Because kids naturally feel good about helping. Yeah. When you're with a little kid, they want to help. They want to be involved. They want to do things. Yeah. And so you teach them how to do things. You let them do things. And they build self-confidence that way. And they don't have to compare themselves to their brothers or sisters or anybody else. Yeah. And you teach kids, everybody has different things that they like, and everybody excels at different things, and that's good. That's good. You don't have to be the best. And I think this would make kids actually psychologically a lot more healthy. Yeah, because people go through life, especially now, the young people have so much stress. Yeah, starting from very little, they have to create a CV, in order to get into the right kind of kindergarten in a private school. Before, you have to have gone to a certain kind of daycare and gotten certain number of gold stars from your daycare and a certificate from your daycare so that you can get into a good kindergarten. My goodness, what are we doing to kids? What are we doing? This is so stressful to them. And then by the time, they get to high school and college, why do we see increased suicide rates in recent years for teenagers and college students? Why? Yeah, because the society puts them under too much pressure. Yeah, and sets them against each other, with everybody competing against everybody else to be the best. And it just creates this tension and builds low self-esteem. Yeah. So that it's the whole thing of comparing ourselves to others. And then society rewarding us for that. Yeah. So I think the nice thing about being an adult is you can reassess what you learned as a child and throw a lot of it out because you've reassessed with your adult wisdom and seen that some things you learned as a kid are just not useful. Yeah, like comparing yourself with other people and competing with them. Yeah. And there's a competition, somebody's good, somebody loses.
And 2 more questions related to self-esteem. So one person asks, is it fine to develop a healthy self-esteem and confidence by trying to connect to and understand better our Buddha nature?
Yes.
And someone else says, a close friend of mine has pretty low self-esteem and the related self-centeredness. How can I best help him? What would be wise to say or do or not do?
Okay, first, I think that somebody with very severe problems about self-esteem could very well benefit from therapy. Yeah, so I think that person may want to look into that. Also, it's hard because you're thinking of a specific individual. And when I think of people with low self-esteem, there's such a big range of individuals that I would give different advice to. Some people with low self-esteem are so stuck that you can't say, that anything you say just doesn't get in. In which case, really, I think emphasizing that they seek some professional help would be good. Other people have a low self-esteem that can, you can talk to about what we've just been talking about in class, and they're at a place where they can go, oh yeah, that's really true. Yeah. This has been clicking the whole time. We can put something soft there so it doesn't click. Here. All right, pull it up a little bit. Okay. Ingenuity.
Just at the level of the window so the wind stop it.
Okay, let's go back to the teaching. Look here. Don't look at her pulling the blinds. Okay. Okay, I hope that answers the question okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So someone is asking, sorry, let's get it up again. Is renunciation really needed for lay people? And if so, then how to develop it?
Okay. So is renunciation necessary for lay people? Well, it depends upon what you want to do in your life. Yeah. It depends. Renunciation is necessary if you want to become a Buddha. Yeah, if you don't want to become a Buddha, it's not necessary. And it has nothing to do with whether you're a layperson or a monastic. Yeah, renunciation is a mental attitude. It's not the clothes you wear. It's not your hairdo. Okay? And then we also have to really understand what renunciation is. Like I said, renunciation, what are we renouncing? We're renouncing suffering. We're renouncing dukkha, or unsatisfactory conditions. We're renouncing the first of the four truths of the Aryas. We're not renouncing happiness. Okay? So it depends what you want from life. There's some people who want kind of some nirvana and just the right degree of samsara. Yeah, so I can have samsara and nirvana at the same time. Yeah, that's difficult to pull off. Yeah, but our basic situation, at least mine, is there's a lot of attachment to the happiness of this life, and there is a sincere spiritual aspiration. And so how do I increase the latter and decrease the former? Yeah. Okay, so we'll close for today. We'll take up next Wednesday, same time. Please, between now and then, do some checking meditation about what you've heard in the teachings. Yeah, think about them. Jot down some of the important points, and then when you're meditating, just use those points to kind of learn about yourself and learn about what's important to you. And use those points to kind of check your behavior and check your attitude. Okay? And then you may come up from that with some resolutions about qualities that you want to really emphasize in your practice, and qualities that you want to reduce by emphasizing their antidotes.